Stephen, your fund, as you said, invest in something like 56, involved in investing in some 56 countries, right? I'm wondering, as an investor, how do you see the opportunities, the investing opportunities in Indonesia as far as infra projects are concerned?
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Because I think the microphone's been a bit funny. If you can hear me, I'll dispense with that. Look, ASMA Capital has been set up to manage the Islamic Development Bank Infrastructure Fund number 2. This is a fund which has been created to invest in infrastructure projects, things like power and energy, transport, airports, seaports, health and education, transmission networks across the 56 member countries of the IDB, of which, of course, Indonesia, as has been mentioned, is the most populous one of those. Mm-hmm. The fund's been sponsored by the Islamic Development Bank itself, and we've talked already today about the IDB annual meeting here in May this year, and this is an initiative to try and mobilise capital. It's also supported by the two big Saudi sovereign funds, the Public Investment Fund and the Public Pension Agency, also by the government of Bahrain through the Ministry of Finance and the government of Brunei, the Sultan of Brunei, through their Ministry of Finance. So we look to mobilise capital from those groups to invest in infrastructure projects in the member states. And it's a funny thing, if you look at the sovereign wealth funds in the world, and if you take out the Chinese and take out the Norwegians, a fair proportion of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the world are members of Islamic countries. So, but at the same time, we've got 56 member countries that need capital. So how can we bring the capital from those countries, the sovereign wealth groups that have it, to those countries that need it? And the IDB Infrastructure Fund number 2 is a means of trying to mobilise that capital. So when we look at Indonesia, the two things that jump at us are, one, power, obviously, with a requirement for 35,000 megawatts, but also the fact that Indonesia is an unusual place because it's very spread out and with a lot of islands, which means that often the energy solutions that might work in Europe, where you build a big power station and hook it up to a transmission network that takes it to where it's needed, don't necessarily apply. And therefore you need to look maybe at some smaller scale or localised power generation, and particularly renewables, which I think have a big role to play. The other thing that jumps out about Indonesia is logistics, moving things around, both physical goods and people. Therefore you're talking about airports, seaports, transport solutions, storage for both physical goods and also for liquids. So I think that's an important area as well. And when we look at projects, the projects themselves have to stand up. We also like for the markets we're investing in to have stability, to have some capital market support. And I think if they've got the Islamic finance or Sharia compliant finance, that's a bonus points. But really, I think as was mentioned before, the most important thing is to have at first an established capital markets, which can then be adapted to also have Islamic finance solutions as well.